That's the part that still makes me shake my head. Because if I had stayed home that Sunday, none of this would have happened. I would still be sitting on my porch in Colorado Springs, sanding wood and telling myself I liked being alone. I would still believe quiet was enough. I would not know what it feels like to have someone look at me like I matter. My friends set it up like a joke. That's how it started. Friday night, my phone buzzed while I was in my workshop behind my cabin. Sawdust covered my arms. The air smelled like pine and glue. Harley, my rescue dog, was asleep by the door like he owned the place. I checked my phone and saw Derek's name. Blind date, Sunday, 3 p.m. Lakeview Coffee by the water. Trust us, trust us. That was the part that made me nervous. My friends treat my single life like it's a problem they need to fix, like I'm some group project that needs attention. They've done this before. One time they signed me up for speed dating, and I ended up listening to a woman talk about her pet iguana for 20 minutes like it was her child. Derek still laughs about that. So when he texted me about this blind date, I knew it had their fingerprints all over it. I could have said no, I should have said no, but something in me didn't want to be the guy who always runs. So I texted back, fine. But if this turns into another reptile story, you're buying drinks for a month. Derek replied with laughing emojis. That should have been my warning. Sunday came too fast. My cabin sits at the edge of Colorado Springs, tucked against pine trees and quiet hills. It's small and creaky, but it's mine. I built most of the furniture myself. I like knowing how things fit together. Wood makes sense to me. People don't always. At 2:20, I checked the time and thought about bailing. I could have said my truck wouldn't start. Nobody would be shocked. But I washed up, changed into clean jeans and a flannel, and headed out anyway. Lakeview Coffee was warm and cozy, all wooden beams and big windows facing the lake. The water outside looked like glass under the pale blue sky. Inside, it smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon. I ordered a black coffee and sat near the window. 3 o'clock came, then 3:05, then 3:10. No text, no sign of Derek hiding with a camera. Just me, sitting there like the punchline. At 3:15, I stood up, ready to leave. That's when the door chimed. I looked up, expecting to see Derek grinning like an idiot. Instead, I saw her. She walked in like she belonged there. Calm. Not trying too hard. Brown hair pulled into a loose bun, a long floral dress that moved gently when she stepped. A soft cardigan around her shoulders. She looked real. Not flashy. Not loud. Just steady. She scanned the room, and when her eyes landed on me, they stayed. Then she walked straight toward my table. "Zane?" she asked. My heart did something strange in my chest. "Yeah," I said, standing too fast and almost knocking over my coffee. "That's me." She smiled, warm and easy. "I'm Elise." Her hand was warm when I shook it. The touch was quick, but I felt it long after she let go. She sat down like this was normal. I blinked. "So," I said, glancing around, "I'm guessing we're victims of the same joke?" Quote. Her smile widened. "My friend Lisa told me to show up and meet a guy named Zane. She said I needed to get out more." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. We both thought it was a prank. That made it easier, lighter. We started talking, and something shifted. She told me she had been married once. It ended years ago. No drama, just two people who stopped choosing each other. She moved back to Colorado Springs to be closer to her mom. Not because her mom needed a nurse, but because she needed someone nearby. Someone steady. I told her about my cabin. About Harley. About how I prefer wood and quiet over crowds and noise. She listened like she cared, not like she was waiting for her turn to speak. Time stopped feeling important. The cafe filled and emptied around us, but it felt like we were in our own space. She laughed when I showed her a picture of Harley guarding my porch like he owned the mountain. She teased me about living like a lumberjack. I teased her about bringing peppermint tea everywhere. When she asked why I really came, I didn't give her a smooth answer. I told her the truth. Because I didn't want to keep running, I said. And because part of me wondered if my life could be different. She didn't laugh. She just nodded like she understood exactly what I meant. When we finally walked out, the sky had turned soft orange over the lake. The air smelled like pine and water. She stood beside her beat-up Subaru and looked at me with that steady gaze. "I had a good time," she said. "Me too," I answered, and I meant it. "If your friends ask," she added with a small smile, "tell them it wasn't a joke." Then she drove away. I stood there longer than I should have, hands in my pockets, feeling something shift inside me. When I got home, Harley met me at the door like he knew something was different. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, replaying her laugh, her voice, the way she said she stayed. My phone buzzed. "Derek. So, lone wolf. How bad was it?" I stared at the screen and typed back the only thing that felt true. It wasn't a joke. What I didn't tell him was this. For the first time in years, I wanted more than quiet. And I had no idea that the woman from that so-called joke date was about to change everything. The way she looked at me like I wasn't a project, like I wasn't something to fix, like I was already enough. The worst part was I didn't even have her number. I thought about asking Derek, but I didn't want him in the middle of this. I didn't want screenshots in a group chat. If I reached out, it had to be me. So I did nothing. That's what I'm good at. Staying still, pretending I don't care. Then Wednesday afternoon, while I was wiping sawdust off a table I had just finished, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. For a second, I almost ignored it. I opened it anyway. "Thanks for the unexpected coffee date. If you want to hear another story about a feral cat attacking people, I'm free Thursday evening." I stared at the message like it might disappear. Elise. I let out a sharp laugh, and Harley lifted his head like he wanted details. I typed back slower than I wanted to admit. "Only if you promise not to bring the cat." "Thursday works." Her reply came fast. "Name the place. No games. No chasing. Just clear. Lakefront Trail. 6 p.m. Bring a jacket. It gets cold by the water." She answered almost right away. "Bring Harley. I want to meet the famous dog." I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Thursday came fast. I worked all day but checked the time too often. By evening, I showered, changed into clean jeans and a flannel, and clipped Harley's leash on. He stood by the door like he already knew. The lakefront trail was quiet, lined with pine trees and wooden benches. The water reflected the fading orange sky. A few couples walked past holding hands. A jogger passed us with headphones on. Then I saw her. Elise sat on a bench with a small thermos in her hands. Her hair was down this time, soft waves falling past her shoulders. She wore a gray sweater and jeans. Simple, real. When she saw me, her face lit up. Harley didn't wait for permission. He pulled forward, tail wagging like he had known her his whole life. Elise laughed and crouched down, letting him sniff her hands. She scratched behind his ears and Harley melted. "Wow," she said. "You are not exaggerating." "He takes after me," I said. She lifted an eyebrow. "We'll see about that." We started walking, Harley trotting between us like he was proud of himself. At first, we kept it light. She told me her mom had been complaining about the neighbors again. I told her about Harley stealing an entire sandwich off my counter once. She laughed in that easy way that made everything feel warmer. We stopped near the water. The lake looked calm and endless. Elise handed me the thermos. "Peppermint tea," she said. "It helps when the air gets sharp." I took a sip. It was warm and simple and thoughtful. "Thank you," I said. "I wanted to," she answered. The conversation shifted without warning. Not heavy, just honest. She told me more about her marriage, how it didn't end in a big explosion. It faded. Two people slowly shrinking around each other. She said after the divorce, she told herself she was done trying. "I thought being alone would feel peaceful," she said quietly. "Sometimes it does. But other times, it feels like a room with no sound. Like you're fine, but you're also disappearing." Her words hit me because I knew that feeling. "You're not disappearing," I said before I could stop myself. "Not to me." She looked at me like that mattered. We started seeing each other after that, not in a rushed way, just steady. She came over for dinner at my cabin. I grilled steaks while she opened a bottle of red wine that made me feel like I should have used better plates. She didn't care. She laughed when the porch board squeaked. She said my place felt honest. We went downtown one night and painted small canvases at a little art cafe. Mine looked like a bad mountain. Hers looked like the lake at sunset. She teased me about my lack of talent. I teased her about being secretly competitive. It felt easy, too easy. Then Saturday happened. We were at the grocery store, standing in the bread aisle arguing over sourdough versus rye. Elise was smiling, actually relaxed, when I felt her hand tighten around my arm. I followed her gaze. A man stood at the end of the aisle, early 40s, clean haircut, expensive jacket. He looked like the kind of guy who always believed he was right. He was holding hands with a younger woman. He looked up. "Elise," he said. She didn't step back. "Mark," she replied. I didn't need an introduction, her ex-husband. Mark's eyes moved to me, to her hand on my arm. A slow smirk spread across his face. "So," he said, "this is your new thing." The way he said it made my jaw tighten, like she was a phase, like I was a joke. Elise didn't flinch. "This is Zane," she said, calm but sharp. "And he's someone who makes me feel like I'm worth something." Something inside me went still when she said that. Mark laughed, but it sounded forced. "Didn't think you'd go for the rugged type." I stepped slightly closer to her, not aggressive, just present. Elise squeezed my arm once. Mark shrugged like none of it mattered, then turned away. "Hope it works out," he said as he walked off. The younger woman followed him, looking uncomfortable. The air felt thick after he left. "You okay?" I asked quietly. She nodded, but her fingers were still tight. We paid for half our groceries and left. The drive to my cabin was quiet. She stared out the window. When we pulled up, she didn't move right away. "He used to make me feel small," she said finally. "He doesn't get to do that anymore," I answered. She swallowed. "Sometimes it still feels like he does." I reached over and took her hand. "Not here," I said. "Not with me." She squeezed my hand like she was holding onto something steady. That night, after I dropped her off at her place, my phone buzzed again. "Mind if I come over tomorrow night? I don't want to be alone." I stared at the message. I could feel it. Whatever this was between us, it was about to go deeper. And I knew if she walked through my door in the dark, I would not want her to leave. The next evening dragged slower than any day I could remember. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying the look on Elise's face in the grocery store. Calm on the outside, shaken underneath. I kept hearing her voice in my head. "He used to make me feel small." That line stayed with me. By the time the sun dropped behind the pines, a cold rain had started. It tapped against the roof of my cabin, soft at first, then steady. Harley paced near the door like he sensed something important was coming. Then I heard it. Tires on gravel. I was already at the door before she knocked. Elise stood there under a dark umbrella, rain dripping from the edges. Her hair was slightly damp, cheeks pink from the cold. She wore a green sweater and jeans. Simple. Familiar. Like she belonged here more than she realized. "Sorry to show up like this," she said softly. "You're not showing up," I told her, stepping aside. "You're coming in." She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all day. Harley walked straight up to her and pressed his head against her leg. Elise laughed quietly and scratched behind his ears. "He's loyal," she said. "He knows good people," I replied. I hung her coat by the door and made peppermint tea, the kind she liked. We sat on the couch with a blanket over our legs while rain tapped against the windows. The cabin felt warmer with her inside, like the walls themselves relaxed. For a while, we didn't talk, not because it was awkward, because it wasn't necessary. Then she stared into her mug and spoke. "It's not just seeing Mark," she said. I stayed quiet. I let her finish. "It's everything," she continued. "The marriage." The way I kept shrinking myself to keep the peace. I told myself I was happy because it was quiet. But I wasn't happy. I was just small. Her voice didn't break, but it was close. "I promised myself after the divorce that I wouldn't need anyone again," she said. "That I wouldn't let someone have that kind of power over me." She looked at me then. Then you happened. My chest tightened. "I haven't felt safe like this in a long time," she said, "safe enough to want something again. And that scares me." I turned toward her, my shoulder brushing hers. "What scares you more?" I asked gently, "wanting it or losing it?" Quote, "Both," she admitted. "I'm older than you. My mom depends on me. I have history. I don't want to become a weight in your life." Quote, "That hit something sharp inside me. You're not a weight," I said firmly. "You're the first person in years who makes this place feel full." Her eyes searched mine, like she was looking for cracks in what I said. "And if one day you wake up and realize you want someone younger," she whispered, "someone easier?" I reached up and brushed my thumb gently along her cheek. "I don't want easy," I said. "I want real, and you're real." She stared at me for a long second. Then she set her mug down with slightly shaking hands. "I don't want to keep doing life alone," she said. "Neither do I answered. I leaned in slowly, not rushed, not grabbing, just moving closer like I was asking permission with every inch. She met me halfway. The kiss was soft and steady, warm. It tasted faintly of peppermint tea. It wasn't desperate. It felt certain, like two people choosing the same thing at the same time. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. "This feels too good," she whispered. "Like it might disappear." "It won't," I said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." Quote, she stayed that night, not in some rushed, reckless way. She stayed in the way that mattered. We talked for hours. About her mom dancing in the kitchen to old jazz records. About the first table I ever built that still leans to one side. She fell asleep on the couch, with her head on my shoulder and her hand in mine. I didn't move. I just sat there listening to the rain fade into silence. 2 weeks ago, I thought I was walking into a prank. Now I was sitting in my cabin with a woman who made me want to build something more than furniture. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the trees. The air smelled clean after the rain. Elise woke slowly, blinking as she remembered where she was. "Morning," she said, voice soft. "Morning," I replied. Harley climbed onto the couch between us like he had decided she was family. We made breakfast together, nothing fancy. Eggs and toast. She stood in my small kitchen in her socks, hair messy, humming under her breath. The cabin felt different, lived in. Before she left, she stood by the window looking out at the trees. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing," she said quietly. "It won't be," I answered. She turned to face me. "Promise?" "I don't make promises I can't keep," I said. "But I can tell you this. I want you here, not as something temporary. I want to build something with you. Slow, steady." Her eyes softened. "Okay," she whispered. She kissed me once on the porch before getting into her Subaru. I watched her drive down the gravel road until the trees swallowed her up. My phone buzzed minutes later. Derek. So, was it a joke? I looked around my cabin. Her mug sat in the sink. Her cardigan still hung by the door because she forgot it. Harley stood at the window like he expected her back. I typed back. No, it wasn't a joke. What I didn't say was this. It was the beginning of something I wasn't prepared to lose. And I had no idea how fast that fear was about to become real. The first time it happened, I thought I imagined it. We were at a small outdoor concert near downtown Colorado Springs. Nothing big. Just a local band playing on a wooden stage with string lights hanging above us. Elise stood beside me, her hand loosely holding mine, swaying slightly to the music. She looked peaceful. Then a man behind us laughed too loud and brushed past her shoulder. It was nothing, but Elise's whole body stiffened. I felt it instantly. Her hand tightened around mine, and she shifted closer like she needed something solid. "You okay?" I asked softly. She nodded too fast. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. I could see it in her eyes, that quiet fear she tried to hide. The same one from the grocery store. Mark wasn't there that night, but the shadow of him was. Later, when I drove her home, she was quieter than usual. "Sometimes I hate that he still lives in my head," she admitted as we sat in my truck outside her place. "He doesn't," I said gently. "You just remember who you were with him." She looked at me like that made sense. "I don't want to bring that into your life," she said. "You're not bringing him," I replied. "You're bringing you." She gave me a small smile, but I could tell something was still weighing on her. A few days later, everything changed. I was working on a client's deck when my phone buzzed. It was Elise. "Are you free right now?" Something in my chest tightened. I called her instead of texting back. Her voice was shaky. "He showed up," she said. "Where?" I asked, already grabbing my keys. "At my mom's house." My blood went cold. "I'm coming," I said. When I pulled up, Mark's black SUV was parked at the curb. Elise stood near the front steps of her mom's house, arms crossed tight over her chest. Mark stood a few feet away, his posture relaxed like he owned the sidewalk. I got out of my truck and walked straight toward them. Mark glanced at me and smirked. "Wow," he said, "you move fast." I ignored him and went straight to Elise. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, but her eyes were glossy. "He just wanted to drop off some paperwork," Mark said smoothly. "Didn't mean to cause a scene." "You could have mailed it," Elise snapped. That caught me off guard. She wasn't shrinking, Mark shrugged. "I was in the area." "No, you weren't," she said firmly. "You just wanted to remind me you can still show up whenever you want." Quote. The air shifted. Mark's smile faded. "That's not what this is," he said. Elise stepped closer to me without thinking. I felt her shoulder brush mine. "Then what is it?" she demanded. He looked at me again, like I was something temporary. "You really think this is going to last?" he asked her. "You always get scared. You always pull back." That hit her. I felt her flinch. Before I could say anything, Mark reached out and grabbed her wrist lightly, like he had done it 100 times before. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't pretend you've changed." And that's when it happened. Elise's voice cut through the air sharp and clear. "Get your hands off him." For a second, I didn't even realize what she had said. Then I understood. She wasn't protecting herself, she was protecting me. Mark looked confused. "I'm not touching him," he said. "I know," Elise replied, her voice steady now. "But you don't get to stand there and try to make him small the way you made me small. You don't get to do that anymore." Her hand found mine and held tight. Mark stared at her like he was seeing someone new. "You're different," he said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "I am." There was no shaking in her voice now, no shrinking, just strength. Mark looked between us one last time. Whatever he was about to say, he swallowed it instead. He turned, walked to his SUV, and drove away without another word. The street felt quiet after he left. Elise's breath came fast for a few seconds. Then she looked at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For dragging you into this." I stepped closer. "You didn't drag me," I said. "I walked here." Her eyes softened. "I've never stood up to him like that," she admitted. "Not like that." "You did today." She looked down at our hands still linked together. "I don't want to lose this," she whispered. "You won't," I said. "But what if I get scared?" she asked. "Then we handle it," I answered. Together. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look fragile. She looked brave. A few weeks later, my friends invited us over for dinner. Derek couldn't stop grinning like he had personally invented romance. So he said loudly at the table, "Best joke we ever pulled, right?" I looked at Elise. She was laughing at something Harley was doing in the yard. "It wasn't a joke," I said. Derek raised an eyebrow. "No?" "No," I answered. "It was the best accident of my life." Elise glanced at me and smiled. Later that night, as we stood on my porch under a sky full of stars, she slipped her hand into mine. "You know," she said softly, "when I told Lisa we were just friends, I thought that was safer." "Safer than what?" I asked. "Safer than admitting I was falling for you." My chest tightened. "And now?" I asked. She stepped closer, her forehead brushing mine. "Now," she said, "I'm not scared of wanting it anymore." I kissed her under the quiet Colorado sky, pine trees swaying gently around us. My friends thought they set me up for a laugh. What they really did was introduce me to a woman who refused to let anyone make us small again. And every time I hear her say my name now, I know one thing for sure. That Sunday wasn't a joke. It was the day my whole life changed.